Morning and welcome to Wednesday, the 27th of January 2021. Yes, Science Lesson 4. Can you believe it? How very exciting. Well, here we are, another morning of science, and I'm very excited about today's lesson because I think we're going to be learning some super awesome things all about plants, and today's objective, what we're trying to learn today, is all about how water is transported in plants. It's not with lorries, it's not cars driving in, dropping off the water. No, we're going to be finding out all about it in today's lesson. So let's crack on. Our learning objectives for this week, again, there's a bit of planning. We need to be recording our ongoing investigation into how plants grow best, so be ready to fill that sheet in shortly. You're going to still be doing questioning, making predictions about how plants get their water, and also thinking about making predictions on what you think will happen next with how our plants grow best experiment. It's got some interesting results. I'm quite excited about sharing them. And perseverance, because we still need to be patient with our ongoing investigation, because it does take time, but I think we're having some fun. Okie dokie. So, your Wilfs today. Bronze, you need to be able to explain the function of a stem. Silvers, you want to explain how water is transported in a plant. And gold, you need to explain the different factors that affect the way water is transported in a stem. Challenge, if you can write an explanation about investigating the best environment for water to be transported, that would be equally awesome. Here we go. So, very quickly, let's do a bit of a look back in time about the learning we've been doing before. So, when we were doing about food, what type of food do you find in fats and sugars food group? What food do you find in the fats and sugars food group? Have a little think about that one. 7 weeks ago, we were looking at the bones. So how many bones are there in the adult human body? Okay, how many can you remember? These are our kerfs, you see. One like that one is a kerf, our key instant recall fact. And that's one of those questions where you've got to be able to go, I know the answer, it's... And then when we were doing light a few weeks back, what does translucent mean? What does translucent mean? If you want to jot down your answers before I reveal all, then go for it. But let's find out the answers. Here we go. Or you can pause here and then come back and press play to find out the answers. Have a little go, see if you can do it. Okay, right. The answer. You could have had lots of things here, but sweets, chocolate, oil, fried foods, that sort of thing. Okay, so that's some of our foods you'd find in that food group. There's quite a few that you could have put there, but they're the most obvious there. Okay, how many bones in the human body? In the adult human body? 206. And finally, what does translucent mean? An object that is translucent only allows sunlight to get through an object like a plastic milk carton or the glass you might have in your bathroom, like frosted glass windows, that sort of thing. So they let light through, but not perfectly. You couldn't really perfectly see through like you would a glass window, which of course is transparent. Okie dokie, moving on. And here are our objectives for this term, and today we're thinking about the function of the stem. Okay, so today we're identifying and describing the function of the stem. So that is the key aspect of today's science objectives, and that's from our curriculum, so we know we're covering it well at home as well as in school. Obviously, this is ongoing, number 2, exploring the requirements of plants for life and growth. That's our ongoing objective throughout the whole of our half term. And of course, we're looking to make systematic, that means regular and careful observations, and where appropriate, take accurate measurements using standard units. And you'll learn more about this one in the last week of term. All about making simple, recording our findings using bar charts. And we're going to focus in on bar charts. Okie dokie. and onwards. Now, if you remember last week, I just wanted to recap on here. Geotropism, do you remember what that was all about? Do you remember we said it's when the root, no matter which way round you plant the seed, the root always finds its way down or downwards. Okay, so the root grows downwards because it uses gravity to discover it, and then the shoot will grow up. Now look at these 3 seeds. Now I've been treating these the same. Apart from the direction that the seed was facing, they've all had the same water, the same conditions. And look at this one. This was seed 3. I've put them in order of 1, 2 and 3. Seed 3 has absolutely blown it, and that was the one that was upside down. And if you look closely, it looks like you could say, oh, the seed's coming out the bottom like the others. But actually what's happened is, and I was tempted to get it out, but I thought I don't want to disturb it. The root has grown up from the top and it's gone behind the seed. So it's kind of pushed its way down, and so we can't see it coming out the front, growing down this way. It kind of went around the back of the seed and down. So that's just the way it is. It's no big deal. But the shoot that's come off it is huge compared to the other 2. So even though we would say that it was technically upside down, the shoot part has come out really, really well. The shoots are coming out from here, but I think what's really interesting compared to last week, and you can always look back at the last video if you really wanted, but the root system has really started to develop. You can see the main root has got little root shoots coming off it. And on this one and this one, you can see it's slightly black. That's partly because ultimately these seeds cannot grow effectively in these conditions. They're doing what we want. It's a brilliant way of seeing the root system growing. But in terms of the long-term survival of the actual seed and the plant, it probably won't do so well because it is only kitchen towel. And we know, hopefully you're realising that one of the key things that any seed needs is, of course, soil, not a damp piece of kitchen towel. Anyway, but I just thought you'd want to see that because I think that's extraordinary growth since just last week. So there you go. We will move on. Now, the other thing that we're going to check in on is how well our 5 different plant pots have been doing with their growing. I'm going to show you a last week photo, which you've already seen, with a this week photo to go, da-da, what's happened? Now, what I want you to do is, I want you to fill in your table of results that you were doing last week. So basically, if I just quickly go to here, shrink that down. Basically, you need to fill in your observations here in the week 2 column. So we're going to go through each plant. Plant 1, that had light, water and warmth. And we've written a little comment about how it's doing. What I want you to do is, as I reveal the picture, I want you to write your observation of the plant into this box here. Okay? So that is your week 2 observation. So it's now been planted for 2 weeks, and we're going to see the difference in the plants. So this is the sheet. You should hopefully have this stuck in your book, or because you printed it out, or you drew it into your book and you've got the columns in place and you're able to just write directly onto your page. Okay, so please fill this in as we go. So I'll just give you a moment to get to your section that you need. Okay, open your science book, get to the page where you had this. I'm going to close this down, but that was a reminder of what you need to do. But I have got the observations coming up. You can pause the video as we go, looking at each plant to make your observation nice and clear. Okay, here we go. This is exciting. Here is pot 1. Pot 1. This was all of the pots except for pot 5 have 1 single seed in them, remember. Okay, so this was last week. This is the pot that's getting light, water and warmth. Shall we see how it's doing for this week? Have a little look. Ta-da! Whoa! He has shot up. That little seed is awesome. And we can say this has grown 10 centimetres in 1 week. Okay, this is now just over 10 centimetres tall, because obviously I'm going to say that was about half a centimetre to a centimetre, and this is now 11. So it's basically grown 10 centimetres in 1 week. So if you wanted to now write into your... Actually, I should have get the visualizer back up. I can just make the point. So you can say the plant has grown 10 centimetres. Okay, so there you go. The plant has grown 10 centimetres. If you want to make any comment about how healthy it's looking, it's got a few leaves on it. It's doing well. Remember, these are pea shoots. These are pea seeds. All right, so that was pot 1. Let's go to pot 2. Now, pot 2. This is exciting. This had no light, but it had been watered. Let's see how it's done this week. Da 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 da. Da. Ah! Oh, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. There is the tiny. Now, I don't think it's very easy for you to see. I can see this when I look at the pot myself, but there is the tiniest hair of a shoot that's come through the soil. So this has technically grown. Okay, it's only half a centimetre tall. I mean, and it's so thin. It's not like the chunky. It's not like the chunky pot 1. Okay, it's not. If you think about that shoot, it's not as big as that or as thick as that. Oh, sorry, I got rid of. Have to do that again. So yeah. So there you go. There is the tiniest shoot growing, and it's about 0.5 centimetres tall. So we can pop that in here. Tiny shoot has grown only 0.5 centimetres tall. Thin. We can always write the word thin in. Remember, these are observations. We don't have to be. You don't need to write in a full sentence. It's just really a tiny. It's just a little comment or a couple of keywords to show you what's happened. But as you can see, when we read along here, we'll be able to follow the journey of the seed. So obviously last week nothing had grown, and now we do have a tiny shoot. Okay, let's move on. Oh, here we go. Pot 3. No light and no water. I wonder if anybody can guess how incredible this is going to look now that it's had no light and no water. Da, 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 da. No, not a sausage. Although if a sausage had grown, that would be very clever. But it's as it is a pea shoot, a pea seed. But anyway, absolutely no change. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Nothing, nada, not a thing. Now have a think. Why could this be? Think about what we have seen with the plants that have grown. Why? Are you able to start making a simple conclusion, even at this stage, 2 weeks in, about what a plant needs to grow? Can you find what we call the common denominator? That means the things that are in common with each of the seeds that have grown. What is it they have that's been making them grow? Okay, right, so really, pot 3, no change. So you can just put no change. And if you wanted to do it a bit like what we wrote last week, nothing has grown, nothing has grown. Wonder what we'll be writing here, here, and here. Right. Let's move on to pot 4. Pot 4, last week, light, but no water. So it's had light, so that is fantastic news. Surely this is going to be truly exciting. Da, 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 da. Oh, no. This is getting light, but there's zero change from last week. Zero change. Are you able to see what the 3 key things are that plants need yet? Shouldn't really have written in 3 key things. That might have given things away. But it doesn't matter. So again, go to your sheet and pot 4 or plant 4, no change. You can just literally write no change. Okay. Right. And finally, pot 5. Now, last week, this was very exciting because last week's pot 5, I said to you, didn't I? This is the one pot that has at least, I think it is 10 seeds in there. And they are on the windowsill with light, with water, with warmth. Okay, so if you remember, some of them are growing quite tall already. I think that grown to a full centimetre or so. So let's have a little look. Are you ready for the big delay? Wow! Check out that. There's only one word for it. Wowzers. It's not a scientific term, but I do think wowzers is a great word to exclaim when you look at that. Look at that. Now, only 5 seeds had grown last week. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I said there were 10 in there, and there are 10. A couple of them are a bit smaller, but they're all 10 of the shoots have grown. And what's really interesting is that the tallest one of these beans is 15 centimetres high. Now, if you remember, in pot 1, which was the one which is growing next to this one, so they're both receiving the light, the water and the warmth, that's grown to 10 centimetres. But this, the tallest one in this pot, has actually got to 15, which is incredible when you think about it. So that's basically grown 10 centimetres. No, what am I saying? That big seed here, the biggest of them last week, I think was about 1.5 centimetres. And the tallest one here is now 15 centimetres high. So basically 13.5 centimetres of growth has taken place, which is more than the seed on its own. So I wonder what might happen. And I've put this here. What do you think might start to happen to these shoots over the next couple of weeks? Will they be able, in one little pot, to have enough of a root system to continue to do this well? Okay, so maybe make a prediction about that and write that in your books. But in terms of your sheet here, you can put all 10 shoots have grown. The tallest shoot, look, here I wrote last week it was 1.5 centimetres tall and 5 out of the 10 seeds. So 1.5 centimetres tall, I was right, I did remember. So all 10 shoots have grown. The tallest has grown 13.5 centimetres in a week. Okay, I've gone over the box slightly, but we've got room on the page. Okay, so there's your observation. Write that in. Fantastico! So yeah, that's pretty awesome, isn't it? I've been so excited about being able to show you how well that pot has been growing, because it's just been great. So there we go. That's a recap of everything so far. Now, if you want to pause the video here, because this is a longer lesson, then pause here, go and have a brain break, go and have a run around your house. Don't trip up over anything. Or if you want to run around in the garden, if it's dry, it might not be where you are. Yeah, so have a brain break here, give yourself 10 minutes out, and then we'll carry on with the rest of the lesson, and we'll learn about the main part of today. So you've done part 1, which is recording how our plants have been growing. And so pause here, go have a little break, and come back in a minute or two to do the rest of the lesson. Off you go. Okay, welcome back from brain break. Here is a video clip all about water transportation. Okay, so this is the main part of our lesson to learn about how what the main function of the stem is. So we're just going to go to here and we're going to watch this video. Have a watch.
No, you're not. No, not me. The flowers. I planted these ages ago and I thought they'd be all bright and colourful and full of joy, but they're just white. They're all white. Well, I think I know how to help. Oh, Posy, how? Posy has a plan for you. No, as you were. She's lost it. At school, Miss Violet told us about the special tubes that transport water from the roots up towards the flower. But, Posy, mine don't have roots. You don't always need roots. The stem does the job too. When you put the plants in the water, with or without roots, the tubes in the stem transport the water to the flower. Posy, look. It's already started changing.
Okay, so that was a bit of an intro to what we're learning about today. Okay, and it's all about water transportation. And the transport of water through a plant begins at the roots, which you already knew, the roots being here at the bottom. And the water from the soil is absorbed, so the roots absorb, like you saw in the beans and the cuts, you saw how the roots were growing out, extra little arms, if you like. I know that's not the technical term, and that's absorbing up the nutrients in the water from the soil. Now, from the roots, the water is taken up through thin tubes inside the stem of the plant, and these are called
Xylem.
Xylem. Okay, so this funny word here, you actually pronounce
Xylem.
Xylem. Okay, so Z. So although it starts with an XY, which does make it look like a very hard word to pronounce, it's actually said
Xylem.
Xylem. Okay, that's just my little chum on the iPad.
Xylem.
What's it called?
Xylem.
Thank you. Now these tubes inside the stem act like straws and draw the water up through the stem to the leaves and the flowers. Okay, so it's like inside the stem are lots and lots and lots of very thin straws that literally suck the water up through the plant or transport it up through the plant and then feeds it out to the leaves and to the flowers. Now, here's a cross-section of some celery. And do you see these little marks here, look? These are the parts inside, these are the small tubes in the set stem of the plant called
Xylem.
Xylem. Okay, so this is an example of looking at these small tubes, and that's just the cross-section of a piece of celery. So if ever you want to cut open some celery, you will see it. Right, now, when the water reaches the leaves, it escapes through tiny holes on their surface and it evaporates. Okay, so the water evaporates off the plant, and this turns into a vapour. This then causes more water to travel up the stem. So it's almost like the plant uses the water and the nutrients within it to help it grow, and then everything it doesn't need, a bit like waste, like when we go for a wee, ultimately that's just the waste of us drinking water. We take out all the things we need and then we get rid of it. Well, in a weird way, that's kind of what's happening with the plant. The plant's just getting rid of the excess water that it doesn't need, and that just goes up into the air, it just evaporates into the air. And that allows the plant to then know that it's got room for more water to travel up the stem. So it's kind of a signal process for the plant to know when to sort of take the water up through the stem, if you like, drink that water, and when it needs to rest from having water, because it literally acts as a bit of a trigger to stop more water coming in. So as soon as it evaporates, it goes, right, time for some more. And there you go, with sound effects to explain. Okie dokie. Right, now, let's recap these stages of water transportation. It's not overly complicated, but it is so important in your understanding of how plants work. So, number one, water from the soil is absorbed by the roots down here. The water is then taken up through the stem like a straw. The water called, and remember the process for that is called
Xylem.
Xylem. The water reaches the leaves and the flower, And then finally, in stage 4, any excess water evaporates from the surface of the leaves. So that once it's used what it's needed, the water just kind of evaporates off. Okie dokie. Now, what I thought I would give you the opportunity of doing is a bit what you is a tiny experiment that you can have a go at home on your own, doing what you saw in that little video clip of the in the flower shop of the 2 girls. Now, I did try this. Okay, I feel a bit embarrassed to admit this, but I'll be honest. Just going to be really honest with you all. I tried doing this and it didn't work, and I know why it didn't work. So I'm going to give you some big tips so that yours does work. All you need to do, if you can, and this is not compulsory, please do not worry about doing this if you don't want to, but it is a very cheap and easy experiment to do if you have the resources in the home. Don't please feel like you've got to go out and buy anything or do this if you don't want to. So do this if you have this around the home, and if you do want to go out and buy the stuff, then go for it. But please, this is not a compulsory exercise. This is not something I'm asking you to do. But it's fun if you want to do it. Right, so all you need are some sticks of celery, and if you can find celery with the leaves still on, that's awesome. Or you can buy carnations, and white carnations, are the best to get, okay? And try and have them in bloom already, just because it makes this a lot quicker to do. Then all you need to do is fill up some water with some water. Now, this is where I think I went wrong. I think I had too much water in the container and not enough food colouring, okay? Because food colouring is the other key thing that you need here. You can get red food colouring or you can use blue food colouring. It doesn't matter. But I would go with red or blue because they're very obvious. They're primary colours. They're very clear. They stand out. They'll make an obvious difference to the carnation or the celery. You only have to use one or the other. You don't need to do both, okay? Once you've done that, you just place the flower or the celery into a glass of water. Don't have too much water, but do have lots of the food colouring, okay? Whether you use red or blue, have a lot. Pour, I'd say, at least half the bottle of the food colouring in. They're not big, the bottles, but I would use most of it because you'll get a stronger result coming through in the carnation or the celery. So have a little go at that. Just observe it over 24 hours and see what happens. And if you want to make any notes in your science book about what happens, lovely. If you want to take a picture, stick it in there or send it to your teacher on the Teams chat. And that would be great, okay? But as I say, please, this is optional. There's no test on this. I'm just putting this in here for those that would like to have a go, okay? Now, what you should find is the carnation petals have turned red or blue, depending on which food colouring you used. If you used a celery stalk, if you actually take that out and cut through the middle of it, you look at the profile of where you've cut the celery and you will see very clearly the tubes that have also coloured with either the red or blue food dye that you've been using, okay? You should be able to see colouring in the leaves, and the water level has dropped because obviously it's been drinking the water, okay? The cross section will have red dots and the lengthway section will have coloured strands running through it. So just, again, classic opportunity to do lots of observation and recording of what it is you can see. So this is for all of us now. What do these findings actually tell us? Well, as the flowers and leaves of both plants have turned red or blue, this shows that the coloured water has travelled up the stem in the small tubes seen as coloured dots. This clearly shows that water travels up the stem to reach all of the parts of the plant. So just as you saw it in the video, if you didn't do this, you're not going to do this test yourself. You saw very clearly in the video that that's what happened. So, your task for the main part of today's lesson. This won't take too long to do. You can either download this sheet and print it off if you can. If not, every activity here is very easily copied into your science book. Okay, very easily copied in. So please don't worry if you can't print this off. All you have to do is read these 4 boxes and decide here which is which order is which. So I'm just going to quickly get a pen and And all you have to do is say which is number 1, and you write number 1. I think this is number 2. I think this is number 3. Okay, and so on. Now, don't copy my answers because I haven't actually read that, and I'm not going to tell you the answers. But you need to order from 1 to 4 what each of these boxes are in order from beginning to end of how water is transported through a stem. Then what I want you to do is to draw this flower and the root system into your book, and you are to draw arrows on the plant diagram to show the direction of water as it travels through the plant. So obviously you can have an arrow coming up through here. And then keep going, showing where the arrows go, the arrows show the direction of the water. Then on this one, this final paragraph, all you need to do is literally copy it into your book. Really nice and simple. Fill in the missing words from down here and this paragraph will explain the process of water transportation. So the missing words are down here and the first letters are there. So it's actually nice and simple. But it is a really important thing that you do this in order to make sure that you've understood how water is transported through a plant. Okie dokie. Oops, that's the answers. So if you want the answers, you can press pause on that bit before here, okay? But don't cheat. Do this for yourselves. Anyway, lovely. There's the end of your lesson. I hope you've enjoyed that. I know science is a longer morning, but there's been plenty for you to do. Hopefully you've had fun doing it. And I will see you all again next week. You take care now. Bye.